This is Elisa Molyneux, and I am talking about the best practices for supervising an employee that has been diagnosed with depression. So what is depression? Mayo Clinic defines depression as a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness and loss of interest. Depression is a human experience that many adults will have. They say 1 in 5 Americans will have deal with depression in their lifetime. Life changes bring about depression, a death in the family, divorce, lost job, health issues. Postpartum depression is when after a woman has a baby, they become depressed sometimes. And when children leave the nest, and you have an empty house syndrome that can lead to depression. External forces can cause depression. They say long winters, times when there's not a lot of sun. What we've all discovered is the pandemic can cause depression. Change in political climates. If your president didn't win, you might be depressed. Changes in your neighborhood. If they put a freeway through your backyard, you'd be really depressed. So those are some things that can cause depression. Some symptoms of depression are feeling sad, feeling hopeless, loss of interest, lack of pleasure, short temper, irritability, tiredness, memory loss, sleep disorder, crying uncontrollably, reduced appetite, and weight loss. There were 2 management theories that I read in the textbook that kind of helped me flesh out the thoughts of depression in the workplace. And that's the Human Relation Management Theory by Elton Mayo, which highlights the importance of individual and group dynamics in the work environment and how working in a group can sometimes help a depressed individual. And the XY Theory by Douglas McGregor, with the special emphasis on the Y theory, which believes that employees are inherently motivated to work, and the importance of supervisors helping their employees thrive by providing opportunities for learning and development. So how does a minor supervisor, what is their role in helping a depressed employee and still meet their company goals? And one of them is creating a safe, open, positive work environment. Having an open door policy that allows your employees to come in and talk to you when needed. And knowing that whatever you say is confidential whatever your employee says to your supervisor is confidential. Confidentiality is important. Listening supervisor, a supervisor that listens and is compassionate in their listening and empathetic. Supervisors should also notice certain unusual behavior from employees, like a lot being late all the time, or absenteeism, unproductivity, hostility towards staff, co-workers, sometimes customers, and increased gossip. When you might notice it, and it's a good chance that you might want to sit down and talk to your employee. And talking about conflict, sometimes there is conflict between co-workers, and a proactive supervisor listens to both sides of the conflict. And let's try to let emotions settle down before meeting with both the parties that are involved in the conflict. Hopefully everybody's kind of calm at another time when you sit down and listen and have a meeting. A supervisor tries to find a win-win position or win-win solution, if at all possible. And at times you need to invite human resources in to these discussions to make sure that we are abiding by corporate policies. There's also, for supervisors, dealing with change for employees, especially employees unemployed who might be depressed, might not address change well. So there's some practices that need to be to help an employee deal with change. And one practice that I think is important is being proactive in the corporate environment, dealing with planned change instead of unplanned change, so that you're being proactive about planned change, so the organization is conscious that there's something change is going on, and that change is inevitable. Organizations are required to shift and change as the environment changes around them. And you also want to meet with employees that are affected by the changes, have staff meetings as needed, especially if it's work related. They may have to do the processes different. They need to be trained. Give employees as much time as possible to process change, and give employees opportunities to vent constructively about the change. Communication in the business environment is very diverse, and I think sometimes if you're depressed, it can be overwhelming with 100 emails a day, meetings, phone calls, then mail, and now that we're home, Zoom meetings, conference calls. These all can overwhelm even a non-depressed person. And so learning how to manage that and showing your staff how you manage it is always makes you a really important part of the organization. But other communications like employee handbooks and policy manuals help an organization disseminate information about how the organization works and how they want their employees to conduct themselves. So having a well-organized employee handbook that addresses health as well as mental health is important. When you're onboarding employees, provide as much information about expectations for staff. And that's important for everyone, but especially someone who's depressed who might forget or doesn't think they remember. I think having some kind of structure in their lives actually may help. Staff trainings around health and work time seminars about health are always good communication for a staff member that might be dealing with some depression. An empathetic supervisor who listens without judgment is best practice for business communication. With a supervisor with an open door policy, I think I said that before, and also asking employees that you know or ask all employees, but especially when you know that is not handling things well, how can I help you? And listen, and asking, do you want to talk about it? And listen to what they have to say. When a supervisor has to make decisions, some of the best ways to start is to start with the employee handbook to make sure what decisions the supervisor is making is in line with the corporate plans and structures. Talking to human resources, union representatives if necessary, and upper management. Having one-on-one meetings with the effective staff is also important. But one thing about decision making in action is a poor decision. You need to take action. In conclusion, best practices in supervising an employee with depression is training. Training for staff, training for management, and training for human resources representatives. Having a robust employee handbook. Being empathetic. Listening to staff while they go through difficult times. Sometimes just a listening ear is the difference between a good day and a bad day. And supervising with compassion. I know it's hard to do all this while trying to address company productivity and company goals, but it's a balancing act that a manager needs to be able to do, because overall, the best practice is treating staff with compassion and empathy